The two topics of this video are going to be parent objects and alarms. A parent object is one that shares its properties or characteristics, events and actions with other objects. So let's just say we create multiple blocks, like in Super Rainbow Reef. We want all of these blocks to behave the same way. Instead of setting all of the properties for each single one, granted there aren't that many, we just need to make it solid and do a collision event with pop, but instead of doing a collision event with every single one, we just need to set block 1 as its parent. Now this assumes we do set everything to block 1, so we have to set the collision event, we have to make block 1 solid, although we have to do it to block 2 as well. But everything that's true of block 1 will now be true of block 2, because block 1 is set as its parent, which means block 2 is the child. The child inherits all of the properties from the parent object. So the child inherits events and actions, and basically any other characteristics. And it also inherits collision events from other objects. So if I do a collision event with pop, see how there's a collision event with block 1? Well, since block 2 has block 1 set as its parent, that means this event and all these actions will be true of block 2 as well. We just don't have to do the collision event with every single one, with every single block. So that's the power of parent and child objects. So now block 2 has block 1 set as its parent, same with all the other blocks. But there's also another use for parent objects in Super Rainbow Reef specifically, and that's with the big legs. Now, if the big leg collides with pop, it's destroyed, the score is increased by 200, and then a sound plays. But we also have small big legs. But look, there's nothing here. Actually, there is something here. It's that the big leg is set to, or set as, the parent of the small big leg. So that saves you a lot of work with having to repeat similar things, for having to repeat similar events and do the same settings over and over again. We can just do it once, and if we know we want the small big leg to behave the same way, we just set the big leg as its parent. But what if we do this? And I'm just going to do something like completely random. Like what if we collide with, oh, I don't know, like block 4. Like let's just say that can happen. And then the small big leg is destroyed if it collides with block 4. Even though it can't move, but although there are moving ones. But let's just say that we do this. Is that true of the original big leg? The answer is no. Parents do not inherit properties from their children, only the other way around. Children inherit properties from their parents. So that's important to remember. So parents do not inherit from their children, children only inherit from their parents. The next topic of this video involves alarms. And one is specifically used with the pop start object. So when we begin the game, as we will see actually right now, there's going to be a slight delay. See how it waited before starting the game? Okay, you'll see that again in a second. So you clearly saw that happening. There was a slight delay before the game actually started. That's because there are two pop objects. This one is called pop start. Oh. Make sure there's no spaces skipped there. Not that it really mattered. Now these two objects use the same sprite, so they look identical. But they are in fact different. The start, I'm just going to refer to this as start. The start object lasts there for 1 second, or in terms of GameMaker, 30 steps. So it lasted on there for 30 steps, and then when that time was up, then it transformed into the regular pop object, and then the game started. So let's see how this whole thing was set up. When the start object was created, as in when it first appeared on the screen, I set an alarm to 30. Now, it says alarm 0 because we have many alarms to work with. We can actually work with up to 12 alarms per object, and 0 counts as one of them. So I just used the first one. I just said alarm 0. I set it to, I'll bring that up again. I set it to 30 steps. Okay, so we set an alarm. We're setting a timer. That's basically what an alarm is, a timer. But I didn't yet say what it's going to do when the timer gets to 0, when it runs out. It's coming from 30 to 0. Well, I do that here. That's an event. So we do alarm, and then we need to choose which alarm we're working with. Since I said alarm 0 over here, set alarm 0 to 30, then I need to choose alarm 0 here. And that's what I did. If I chose alarms 1 through 11, then they wouldn't do anything because I never set these alarms. The only alarm I've set is 0, so that's why I needed to choose this one. That's what I did. So when the timer runs out, when 30 steps or 1 second is up, then I change the start object into the regular pop object. So that's how that works. So when the start object first appears at the very beginning, I set the alarm or timer to 30 steps. When those 30 steps are up, the start object changes into the pop object, and that's the one that moves, and that's the one that allows me to play the game. So an alarm in GameMaker is basically a timer, and it's measured in steps. We can work with up to 12 alarms per object, so you can have a lot of different timers. But for this case, we only need one for the start object. So they can be really useful for wanting certain things to happen at specific times. Because if we didn't use this, then the pop object would start moving right away, and you wouldn't give the player any time to kind of get situated before the game started. You want there to be like a second. In this case, is exactly a second. You want there to be a second before the action starts happening, just so the player can get a grasp as to what they're looking at. That is really it. This is a pretty short video on parents and alarms. I tried to keep it short and sweet today. I hope you enjoyed it. I'm sure you did. And we'll be incorporating alarms more as time goes on. No pun intended.